Kata for the sound of the bell. Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amoka Vairatana Maha Mudra Manipadma Chavala Pragataya
Please take a moment to straighten your mats and cushions and then stand facing the altar for the chanting of the three refuges. So bringing our hands palm to palm, gazing at the Buddha, we will first take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha in Sino-Korean in keeping with our tradition, and then a second time in English. So even if you do not know the words of the chant, try to throw your voice in with the sound so you can have some experience of it. And now in English, I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Now please remain standing just for another moment while I read our ancestor dedication. On this 7th day of June, 2026, we acknowledge that this land where our temple buildings stand has been the home of Native peoples, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, and the Ojibwe, the Council of the Three Fire Tribes, and also of Black Americans. We know that this neighborhood used to be a historically Black neighborhood during times of racial segregation and oppression. For our own awakening and for the awakening of all life, may the benevolent energies of our meditation, chanting, and full presence here at this service extend to all beings on this planet and throughout time and space. May there be deepening of our interbeing. May peace prevail and wars cease. Making 3 bows. Please return now for another shorter period of meditation, about 5 minutes or so. Please join me in some simple stretching. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jagwa. I'm one of the Dharma teachers here in Ann Arbor. Nice to see all of you on this early summer, cusp of summer day. So maybe because of the warm weather and all of the sunlight, I've been feeling a little bit of extra energy. And so last weekend, we had a special ceremony in Chicago for this year's precept class, which you'll get to meet in a couple of weeks. So this is the class that we do once per year where a group of people study the Buddhist precepts, which are our moral and ethical guidelines, for a period of about 12 weeks or so. And then we have a formal ceremony where they commit to the Buddhist path and receive a Buddhist name. So this year it was in Chicago at our sister temple. And there was quite a large group this year, maybe over 40 people, I think, between the multiple locations, which is pretty big. And the night before, we always do prostration practice. So as part of this class and study period that the precept takers do, they formally do 3,000 prostrations, which is about 30-ish a day for that period of a few months. And the night before the ceremony, we always do 300 to 400 prostrations together as a big group, which creates a lot of energy. And it was a beautiful, cool evening in Chicago, and we have a huge meditation hall there, maybe twice as big as this room, so everyone could fit comfortably. And as we're doing the prostrations, we also have a special kind of ritual component where every 25 prostrations, we pause in the kneeling position, and then someone will shout out one of 4 gathas, sort of like self-admonitions. And so they, if you come in the morning for a morning practice, you'll hear them because they do them at the temple every morning. So the gathas, our admonitions that we do for prostration practice are: great is the matter of birth and death. Impermanence surrounds us. Be awake each moment. Do not waste your life. Okay. And then someone shouts that out the top of their lungs every 25. Well, we were about 150 or so prostrations in to this practice that evening on Saturday. And just as someone shouted, "Do not waste your life," a dog out in the alleyway went, and then the next 25, "Be awake each moment," So in the meditation hall, I was so inspired by this. I just went, "Ow!" And a few other people joined in. And then we were laughing a little bit. And then we went back to prostrations. But it was really that kind of moment of, I think, the famous line in the Walt Whitman poem, "I sound my barbaric yawp." Hear this expression of, wow, I'm awake in the universe, and so are these other beings. We're all in this together. I had a beautiful, really alive quality that was very touching. And that moment really stuck with me. And as I've been thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to kind of offer a lens on a couple of Buddhist concepts that I think are really pointing us to always remembering the gift of this human lifetime that we have been given. Because in our Buddhist tradition, it is one of the most precious things. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why that might be, beyond the obvious things, of course. And I've also been thinking about this because I work a computer-based job for a software company. And artificial intelligence is has its tendrils invading into every corner of my professional life. And perhaps for some of you too, you have been experiencing this wrestling with relationship with this new kind of machine technology that almost feels like it has a little bit of a consciousness, but it doesn't. And so I want to talk a little bit about that too, because I think it's an important contrast in this particularly media and technology saturated culture and moment that we are living in, to remember the unique opportunity that we have right here with our human consciousness. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. So that's kind of the premise. It's maybe a little more philosophical than usual, but I'm going to try to draw the threads together for you. So my husband, who I think he's home doing the laundry. I was going to defer to him for this part if he was here, but he's been reading Michael Pollan's new book about consciousness. I think it's called something like A World Appears. And it's kind of been in a series because the last couple books that he's done have been a lot about consciousness and his experience with psychedelic plants and all these kinds of interesting topics. So he's been telling me a lot about this book, which now I feel I should read, but I have a good summary of it because he's told me a lot about it. And Michael Pollan essentially kind of argues in the book, in addition to kind of outlining all these fascinating studies about how much and yet also how little we know about human consciousness. He essentially makes the argument that artificial intelligence can never be said to be conscious because it doesn't have a body. And all of what we know scientifically about human consciousness is that it originated in the oldest part of our brain when we were little animals. And consciousness was a way to move away from threat, move towards things that would sustain life. So just being able to discern through our physical senses and our body millions of years ago, essentially how to preserve our own life. And that's where they believe that consciousness originated. So that idea that consciousness is embedded in the body is actually quite a Buddhist perspective as well. the Buddha famously said, everything that we need to learn is right here in this fathom-length body. A fathom is about 6 feet. Some of us are more or less than a fathom. And so he's really pointing at the importance of our embodied senses, our physical experience, our perception as sort of the ingredients for awakening, okay? So there's a particular kind of framework that he started talking about pretty early when he began to teach, called the 5 skandhas. Have you heard of the 5 skandhas before? Yeah. So a skandha in Pali, his language at the time, or one of the languages at the time in India, can sometimes be translated as like a big pile of something. It might be commonly used to use a word commonly used to describe like a pile of firewood or sticks. So the 5 skandhas is a framework that the Buddha offered for understanding the kind of composition of elements of human experience, but not ourself. So let's take a look at them. So the 5 skandhas are form, this body, feelings, so our response to stimuli, positive, negative, neutral, our perception, labeling or identifying things, our consciousness, awareness of our senses, our 5 senses, and mental fabrications, which could be, thoughts, processes in the mind, okay? So form, this body, feelings, response to stimuli, perception, labeling or identifying things, consciousness, awareness of our senses, and mental fabrications, or sometimes called mental formations, active processes of the mind, our thoughts. So to give a kind of everyday example, let's say I burned my hand in the kitchen. Not uncommon for me. Form, the physical experience of the burn. Just what does it actually feel like? Feelings, painful stimulus, ouch. Perceptions, how bad is it? Is it a small burn? Is it a big burn? Can I discern some quality about it? That's my perception of it, judging or labeling. Consciousness, through my senses, maybe my skin is red and painful. Mental formations, that was really stupid of me, or who left this hot pan on the stove and didn't tell me not to touch it? Blaming, judging, thinking, every story around what actually happened. But interestingly, not one of those can be pointed to as a self, meaning something that's separate and fixed. And this is where I love that image of the skandha, this pile of sticks. These 5 things are kind of all heaped up into a pile of sticks that we could imagine as our human experience. But if you've ever looked at piles of firewood, like even neatly stacked, you can put your finger in between some of those sticks. There's nothing in there. You can't point to any one of those things and say that is the entity. It's this kind of amalgamation of things. And so I think he's chosen that word pretty conscientiously to get us to think about the ways in which, yes, these are all common experiences of the human life, but also no single thing can be pointed to as me. Okay. And in particular, I've been thinking about this because, let's see, my birthday's next month, I'll be 45. And the experience of aging, very interesting. Things that I thought were reliably me and mine are changing. Maybe you've had that experience too from an injury or an illness or something like this. Wow, okay, and sometimes my husband will say when I'm complaining about something, turns out that Buddha guy was right about that. Wow, impermanence surrounds us. Who would have thought? And so really this teaching becomes ever more obvious as we go through life and we realize the things that I thought I could count on, even in my own body, or even things about my own mind that I thought I could rely on, they do change. So I just want to say about these skandhas, because sometimes I think it would be a misinterpretation to say, okay, I understand, form, feelings, perceptions. How do I get rid of that? Right? Maybe we hear that and we think, that sounds like a lot of trouble. It's obviously causing some suffering, so maybe I can do away with that. But the Buddha is really talking about this almost more so, this concept as a tool, where we can then use that lens to apply it to some of his core teachings. In other words, these senses, this body, this amalgamation of human consciousness, if you will, is that first invitation to recognize that what I think about what's fixed about me or my perception of the world, it's not as stable as I thought. That's actually the first invitation to begin practicing many of the teachings of Buddhism. And it's also the tools that we will apply to those teachings to gain insight into them, because those same things, our body, our thoughts, our feelings, are what allows us to practice our meditation, our ethical conduct, developing of wisdom and compassion. So it's really the material that we have to work with. So let's see what else I was going to say. Oh, yeah. So that's the 5 skandhas. Maybe that's I'll frame that as like the kind of microcosmic view. We each have some experience of these aspects. And then this is the macrocosmic view. So a few years ago, one of our Dharma teachers gave a wonderful presentation about, you can't really see this, but I can pass it around, this kind of famous Buddhist cosmology depiction called the Bhava Chakra, the wheel of life. And I believe this comes more from the Tibetan tradition than our Korean tradition. But essentially what it depicts is sort of this bigger picture of how Buddhist cosmology conceives of the world. So at the top, there's like this little monster. He's like hanging over it. And his name is Yama, the Lord of Death, who represents impermanence. Then we have some animals representing the 3 poisons: greed, hatred, ignorance. And 6 realms. And there's a few other elements too, but I'm going to talk about the 6 realms. And then somewhere on here, usually, I think here in this one, there's a little tiny Buddha, and he's pointing at the moon, saying, pay attention to that. That represents sort of the invitation into the path of awakening. So the 6 realms are where I want to talk about a little bit, because I think this is just another teaching that kind of relates to what I'm trying to get at here with the gift of this human life. So the 3 higher realms are the gods, the demigods, and the humans. So humans are in the higher realms. Okay, interesting. And then the 3 lower realms are animals, hungry ghosts, and hell beings. So these kind of 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom sections. Okay, so the gods realm experiences an overabundance of pleasure. They're just so distracted by having a great time that they don't really have much to do. The demigods have an overabundance of jealousy, which I suppose if, your name was demigod, you might feel like, well, I'm only partially a god. I'm kind of jealous of those other gods. So there's a lot of infighting in this realm, said to be. The animal realm suffers from fear and the suffering caused by predation and exploitation from humans. Okay, we all know what that is about. Then we have the hungry ghost realm, and the hungry ghost is this very classic mythical figure in Buddhism, where you can imagine this being with this huge distended stomach and this long, thin neck. So no matter how much nourishment it takes in, it can't ever get full. Sometimes used as a metaphor for greed, insatiability, deep suffering. And then the hell realms have an overabundance of despair and deep ignorance. And then, so what about this human realm? So in this depiction, it is described as humans have suffering of old age, sickness, death, impermanence, the human condition. And we also have suffering from clinging to likes and dislikes. So that's how our realm is sort of characterized. However, every time this teaching is given, it is pointed out the human realm is the best realm in which to practice Dharma. And why is that? Well, the gods, overabundance of pleasure, they have no motivation. They're just in the lap of luxury and doesn't appeal. The demigods, too much jealousy and infighting. They're too distracted. The animals do not have the autonomy of their own free will to practice. And then in the realms of the hungry ghosts and the hell realms, too much despair and ignorance. So despite the conditions of old age, sickness, and death, and clinging to likes and dislikes, this is the best realm to be in for practicing the Dharma. This really tickled me when I first heard about this a few years ago. So the reason why, of course, is that we're not completely consumed by either the human condition or by being dragged around by our likes and dislikes. We have a bit of autonomy, and we have joy in equal measure to sorrow. That's sort of the grist for our Dharma mill. So I think about these then, the five skandhas, as sort of this microcosmic view of the gift of human consciousness. First, understanding that how we perceive ourselves in the world is not stable. That's the entry onto the path. Oh, so what is it like then? And then the macrocosmic view of these different realms, recognizing despite the suffering of human life, we also have a lot of really good ingredients for cultivating ourselves in service to something greater. Our wisdom and compassion, our ability to even just function a little bit more skillfully in our daily lives. So I wrote here, this is the best place to practice the Dharma. Congratulations! No need to worry about being in the wrong place. And your human senses are the gateway to waking up. Congratulations. Develop your lens of concentration, compassion, ethical conduct, and wisdom, not just being dragged around by this dream of a separate self. So I have then a poem for you, and then we'll open it up for comments or questions. This poem came through my inbox the other day through a newsletter, and I thought it was particularly fitting for this topic. This is by David White, and it's called Everything is Waiting for You. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely, even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you, and the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you. Okay. So I'm curious if there are any questions or comments. We can pass around the microphone. We have a few minutes to have a discussion.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of things which all animals have in common. Okay, and there are times where they do something automatically, just like humans. Sometimes do things automatically, but sometimes they think about it somehow. And I don't know if they've learned it from their mom or something like that, but how to change what they're doing in order to meet the circumstances in a better way. So I met like 8 raccoons this year. Okay. They have different personalities. Some of them are really aggressive. And then they realize that, oh, I'm not going to be hurt. And they settle down. But I know that they have a different language. But they might have different themes too, just like humans do. But humans are better at expressing themselves and making up things and putting things together. We think, but we don't know the animal language yet.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I will say this about likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
When I forget all about it, but then, I'll be in a disagreement with my spouse about, no, I want it to go over there. Or I want to leave at this time or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, wait, that's just a like or dislike that I don't have to cling to. And I'll just say, yeah, that other way is fine. It just, the intensity of just goes away when I remember the teaching.
You have one here.
Thank you, Jaguar.
You're welcome.
My teacher told me when I was taking my precepts, he said, return to the original language of the body. He said, the mind speaks, but the body knows. He said, the mind talks, but the body knows the truth because it lives in truth. It cannot be deceived. He said, young child, don't you squander this lifetime because it may be a while before you return back here in human form. He said, only humans can awaken in the human world. Plants, animals, insects, fire, fish does not bear the capacity to awaken. Only humans can awaken. So he kept emphasizing, don't you squander this lifetime of yours. And he would often mention that. He said, this is a life. This is not your life. This is a life in the sea of life. He said, you like a wave on the surface of water headed towards the seawall. And he was right. As Jaguar said, she turning 44, 45. Change is inevitable. I can't do what I did at 44 because now I'm 74. And I'm not going to make no attempt to try to do what I did at 74. Because I learned to listen to the body every morning because it speaks the truth. See,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm curious, does AI have a pile of skandhas?
Well, let's look at the list again. Form, feelings, perception, consciousness, and mental fabrications. So I do think it has active processes of mind, whatever it's doing. I do think it has perception, labeling or identifying things. And it has response to stimuli because you give inputs and it responds. But it definitely doesn't have form. And I guess that sort of gets back to the point from the book about that Michael Pollan was talking about, that ultimately then it couldn't have consciousness in the way that we understand living consciousness. I've been using it a lot more at work because it's sort of become a bit of a requirement. I'm curious if other people would like to talk about that. We certainly can, because I think it's quite interesting. My sense of it is that it is essentially a huge pattern recognition machine, and it will attempt to understand what I want to see reflected back and then give me that. But it can be helpful for doing a lot of different kinds of technical research in my job, and that's mostly what I use it for. But yeah, I don't know. That's my take on it. Curious if other people have thoughts. Yeah. Oh, Sean, what were you going to say?
Well, I don't really have too many thoughts on AI.
Oh, yeah, we can
'cause
come back to that. No worries.
But I do somewhat concur with Young Child, who is probably the only person in this room who is close to my age. But I remember when I turned
Except for your neighbor there, maybe.
No, he's much younger. Yeah. Okay, I was trying to be polite here. I was trying to be very Buddha-like, and you guys want to rain on the parade. I remember when I turned 45 and a friend of mine said, "Oh, you're going to really notice the change." And I didn't. And I hit 50 and the same friend said, "You're going to really notice the change." And I really didn't. When I hit 60, I began to notice it. When I hit 70, I know I don't look 70. I know. I really noticed it. And I'm much like Young Child. And I was just thinking about this morning. In my mind is still the young Mike. He's still there. That's what my mind sees. But what my body sees is not the young Mike anymore. And the young Mike used to be able to pick up 100 pounds of feed and throw it on the truck. Now the old Mike must work to get 50 pounds of feed. So it's like change is constant. But part of it is, and I agree, listening to our bodies and making the adjustments. As far as the AI, I think I heard recently that there's some research coming out that says AI is capable of lying.
Oh, yes.
So that kind of makes me consider the realm of consciousness. I'm sorry.
Yeah, interesting.
In thinking about AI and how to understand it through a Buddhist lens, one thing that I think about is the oneness of life and how, I don't know, when I think of the oneness of life, I think about how everything sort of moves in unison and is sort of in a very sort of like a symphony. And AI is interesting because separate individuals are taking their thoughts, putting them into one place, and then it's sort of taking it and making it something out of everything. And so I'm terrified of AI, but also I think like perhaps there's a way of thinking of it as it being this sort of mechanical way of synthesizing collective consciousness. And so maybe I don't know, maybe it can be beautiful in some sort of way as a way of sort of, I don't know. Yeah. Putting all of our thoughts together in a way that, we do in other ways, but it's just more direct.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So in Buddhism, Buddhist psychology, when we talk about mind, it's kind of tricky because there's different terms, Pali, Sanskrit, Chinese, for different aspects of mind. Specifically, in the case of the skandhas, the word that's used is vijnana. Vijnana is kind of think of it as sort of mind in motion, the active mind, the mental formations, is Vijnana. There's another aspect of mind when they talk about mind in general. For example, in the Dhammapada that we read, if you get one Dhammapada, it'll say the section on mind. If you get another one, it might be translated section on heart. That's because the big mind, the general mind, isn't just the brain, but it's the heart as well. They did not see a distinction between the heart and mind back then. So when you think of mind in general, it's the whole kit and caboodle, you might say. It's just sort of the totality of our human experience, emotion and mental function. Right. So in terms of AI, no. In terms of Vijnana, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you, Chichang.
My teacher said, young child, you got to go the way of your father and his father before him. And he asked the question to the community. He said, what are you going to take with you? The love, the respect, the appreciation, and the value to others. And that stuck in my heart. That stuck in my heart for decades. That I got to go the way of my father and his father before him. But I can go without fear, knowing that I lived this kind of life that my precept laid down for me. So I just thought I'd just add that. I know the true meaning of impermanence. I see it every day I wake up. Say, this is a 74-year-old man that is not going to lift up 100 pounds of seed.
Yeah. We had one here.
I was thinking about AI and the how much water they need to
Yeah.
cool down and just to keep them like in constant like cooling.
Yeah.
And I thought about our bodies that self-regulate and how we sweat and we have a way of keeping our temperature. I think AI without artificial cooling dies or kills itself. So I go back to the body and how like the wisdom of grounding ourselves in our bodies and how our bodies talk to us and are connected with the environment, whereas AI can't.
Yeah, you have fun.
I want to ask whether AI has this kind of, because of the self-consciousness, let's say in the middle of night for myself, a lot of time, instead of the feeling positive for the next day of myself, a lot of time turn into self-blaming. Oh, this is the things I did. I shouldn't say this way. And then this is just a lot of self-consciousness to blame what I have done. And then in the morning, I run into my colleagues, say, apologize or whatever. And then they say, oh, no. So this is something I thought it's a balance of self-consciousness to become better version of yourself versus killing your openness and your willingness to help and all your drive to be perfect version of yourself. That's something I'm trying to work in the middle of night. Just let it go and impress tomorrow. I feel that it's something AI. I don't think they have this.
No. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Claude is waking up at 3 a.m. and thinking, I shouldn't have said that yesterday. Yeah. Well, I think you have a wonderful example we can all relate to of waking up in the middle of the night with this sort of, our consciousness has, our conscientiousness maybe even has woken us up to say, Jagua, why did you do that? You know, and there's like this process running, and it's something about being asleep. And then I do that too. I wake up and think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I need to go apologize tomorrow. Yeah. I think you're illustrating the sort of the opportunity afforded to us by these human senses, because that's what allowed us to notice. And then our cultivation of our character shows us when we're out of alignment with our intention. At the same time, you know, from the Buddhist perspective, a lot of self-recrimination or self-judgment or self-blame is not considered to be particularly useful, because it can contribute to additional suffering above and beyond what the situation clearly calls for. So it's helpful to have that discernment of noticing, making amends, and then, okay, I did what I could do, you know. So, yeah, but it's very hard. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Hi. AI is very frustrating to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the fact of the algorithms behind it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a group effort, created technology, and it was created by humans.
Mm-hmm.
And it manipulates your own human nervous system. I don't like that about AI at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see it getting any better. It's very frustrating. I grew up in technology. My dad had the first motherboard shop in Ann Arbor.
Oh.
And he traveled around by car, his own salesman, going to different companies such as NASA, Honeywell, Pentex, Texas Instruments, and we made circuit boards for them. He did his own prototypes, and to see technology go this way when he was a very community kind person, man trying to help everybody with his technology, and to see people getting manipulated every day by their computers is very frustrating for me and saddening. And that's what I think of AI. I don't think it should be manipulating people with their manipulation, nervous system manipulation system patents. And I think that that needs to be removed from that sort of technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's so much we could say about this technology. I certainly don't want to present any kind of naive view or endorsement. I've been thinking a lot about this, because even just in the past few weeks that I've been using this tool at work more regularly, we got a new tool in, and then it was sort of like, please go use this, do your job better, faster, more productive. I really notice how it's changing my mind, and in ways that I don't like. Just the habit formation that happens so quickly of, I can offload that thought. hey, Claude, can you go do this for me? You know, and then I'll come back in 15 minutes and then you'll have done all this research that I didn't have to think about. I think it's very seductive. And I also read about people who are quite lonely, who their only social contact is with ChatGPT. And I think as a society, I think we need to do better than that, to be humans for humans people. That makes sense. So that's what I was thinking about this topic is, in particular, if you are interacting with these kinds of tools, some of the basic teachings are very helpful. The Buddha said, guard your senses. The doors to our interior life are through, eyes, ears, nose, mind, body, touch, taste. So he said, guard the doors of your perception, because those kinds of very seductive habit-forming substances, which I will include this technology in that category, I think, really are challenging. So yeah, there's a lot to say. I appreciate the conversation. I feel like it's something that's been on people's minds, so I was curious what other people were thinking about it. Does anybody else want the last word? Otherwise, I think we'll wrap up here for now. Okay. Well, thank you all for your contributions. We will say the 4 great vows and have some announcements. Maybe we'll have the announcements and then the 4 great vows. And then actually after service today, because is this the first Sunday, right? Yes. Then we will have Ask a Dharma Teacher. So you get more of me. If you would like to stay, I'll be here in the meditation hall. We'll get some chairs. And if you have any other questions or discussion, we can just have a small informal group chat about whatever it is you're curious about. And I will do my best to answer your questions. So thank you. Shall we have some announcements?
Yes. Well, welcome to the Ann Arbor Buddhist Temple. Especially warm welcome to newcomers. I think there were only a couple today. We're glad you could join us. We're home to a vibrant residential community, and we're going to have rooms available this fall. Keep us in mind if you want to live with us for a time. Residents engage deeply in practice and temple life while maintaining outside responsibilities. You just mentioned the Q&A session, Ask Dharma Teacher. Together Action meets every Saturday from 3 to 5. Just yesterday we were working out in the garden. We were working, mow the lawn. We were cleaning up the kids' area. There's plenty to do every time we come there. June 14th is the Liberation of Life ceremony, and that's with all the kids. I missed the meeting, so I don't know if they're releasing earthworms into the garden, or I don't know if anybody knows.
Crickets and earthworms.
Crickets and earthworms. Okay.
All right.
As part of a ceremony. Qigong with Samatha meets every Monday evening from 6:30 to 8. I think just out in the middle courtyard there. Saturday, June 20th, we're going to host a special meditation workshop with Dharma Master Tone Sunam from noon to 5. Peace Camp is what?
Time to be announced.
Oh, okay. Yeah. August 1st through 6th for Peace Camp. We've been holding this special event for more than 40 years, and they're looking for volunteers to work in the camp kitchen and as camp counselors. Registration's open till the end of June. Highly recommended. Recovery Dharma?
Recovery Dharma will meet at noon today in the historic Buddha Hall, or as I like to call it, the big yellow building right next door, in the library at noon.
And if you want any more details about these things, you can talk to any of the Dharma teachers in the gray outfits. And then there are sign-up sheets for different things out in the lobby. And we also have tea out there. And our temple is funded by generous donations and financial support and work practice, donation of yourself. Anyway, there's a fishbowl in the lobby and then some other codes for PayPal and credit cards. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay. So please join me in reciting the 4 great vows. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
So we will end with 3 formal bows in front of the altar. And then if I could have your assistance in putting away mats and cushions, the ones touching the carpet at the center of the room will stay where they are. Otherwise, mats and cushions on this side of the room get stacked neatly on the red stage, and on this side of the room in the back corner. So round cushions on the cubbies as you see, and then the flat cushions in that back corner. So thank you.